Hi, you're putting up with Doc T. Today we're going to be making Swedish glögg. This one goes out to Poppy, my wife's grandfather. This is close to his recipe, and I do this every year in his honor. And so what we've got here are our materials, or our ingredients. We've got almonds, we've got sugar, we've got prunes, raisins, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon. In this case, I've used lemons and orange kind of things, any kind of citrus fruit. Different ones will give it a little bit different flavor. We've got a gallon of wine. I prefer to use Burgundies when I'm doing it, just because the flavor obviously is going to taste differently with different ones. And then a bottle of port, and these things will all go in together. So any recipe that starts with pouring a gallon of wine into a pot has got to be a good one. So that's the first step. So we simply open this, and you don't need to get an expensive wine. We're making essentially a mulled spice wine, Swedish glögg. There's no sense buying an expensive wine because you're going to be adding the fruit and the nuts and the sugar and all that to it. So, you know, buy it by the gallon. Normally you're not getting that great wine in a gallon anyway. So we start by pouring a gallon of wine in there. So that gives you kind of an idea of how much this is going to make. So you'll lose a little bit to the fruit because you won't leave the fruit in there. When you're done, you'll strain the fruit out. You'll lose a little bit here, you'll lose a little bit there. So best thing to do is just start by throwing in the fruit. And I'm not going to crunch these up or anything, because what we're going to do is we're going to bring it to temperature. We're going to heat it up to 170 degrees. We don't want to boil it, and you don't want to go too high above 170 because the alcohol starts to cook off. And well, you really just don't want to do that. That defeats the purpose of making mulled spice wine glögg. So I've rough chopped the oranges and the lemons, and the cinnamon sticks I'm just going to throw in there whole. That part easy enough. So the almonds, I want to go ahead and crush those. So I've got a mortar and pestle here, and I just want to do a rough crunch on these. They don't have to be tiny. It's just the ability to get that flavor in there. So we're sort of just busting the shells up. You can buy them shaved, but they're just a lot more expensive when you do it that way. So I just take whole almonds and I bust them up. And they're not real fine, just about like that, and in they go. This part's actually pretty easy. Then I've got the cardamom, and I want to put those in there. Cardamom gives it that really nice smell that you associate with the Swedish glögg, or really just about any other mulled spice. And what I just want to do is I want to crack those. I don't want to pulverize them, so I'm just cracking those seeds. Now sometimes when you buy cardamom, you'll get a pod that holds, you know, each pod holds about 8 or 10 of these seeds. And so you want to take those shells off. You don't want to put that part in there. Just bust them up a little bit. Then I've got my cloves here. And those could go in whole, or we could just crunch them a little bit just to start releasing that flavor. And it goes into there. Now we've got the port. That actually we will add after we've heated it. So we'll add that probably tomorrow. This is a several day process. So what we'll do is we will take and let me go ahead and add the sugar in there. Here's probably the easiest way to do that. And the thing about anything like this is you're going to want to make it your own. So everybody ends up having their own recipe. I'll add an ingredient or two to mine just to make it my own. But you start with the basics of this. And what you'll do then is you'll take and you'll move this over to the stove. You just turn that a little bit. And so what I want to do is I want to heat this up. And we'll bring it up to about 170 degrees, so I get a thermometer and I have that ready. But after you've done this a couple times, you can tell by the way that the wine looks while it's in the pot of what it's going to be. But I've got this just in case. And so really now it's just a matter of heating it up, and I'll show you what it looks like now. So you got that fruit floating in there. Cinnamon. All this is just going to merge together, and it'll be given a chance to sit overnight, at least overnight. So, you know, a day or two, depending on how much time you have. We'll do the second part of this tomorrow. But you bring it up to temperature, and then you just let it sit at room temperature for a day. And then what you'll do is you'll come back, you'll heat it up, you'll add the port, and then I like to add some kind of octane booster, like a little bit of rum maybe, or a spiced rum would be good. Vodka, anything like that, just to sort of kick up the octane a little bit. And then we strain it, and I'll show you that in the next video. You strain it out, and because you don't want all of this in there. And you can eat the fruit, although eating the fruit tends to make a person intoxicated. So you got to be careful of that fruit. It grabs a hold of the alcohol somehow, and well, you can just imagine where it goes from there. But then you can serve this hot or cold. I prefer to serve it hot. Again, I like to get it right up to about 170. And this is great food for, or drink for once you've been out in the cold. And so come in from ice fishing, or while you're out there ice fishing, heat up a mug of this and drink it on the ice. Or you can, anytime, it's best served hot on a cold day, but it doesn't have to be. It's pretty good anytime that you would think about drinking a mulled spice wine. So I know this has a way to go. I'm just going to quickly check the temperature here. Again, I want to get that right to 170 degrees, and that's going to be a while. I'm going to shut the camera off, and then I'll bring it back when you can start seeing a difference. So right now we're only at about 90 degrees. So I'll bring the camera back when we're getting closer to 170 degrees, so that you can see the change that happens to the surface, so that you can tell when it's trying to cool it off without actually having that thermometer. Okay, so we've just passed the 100 degree mark, and you'll notice that you're starting to see little bubbly kind of stuff forming on the surface. Those bubbles are what's going to really give you the clue about what's going on here, because they will eventually change. See, we're now at 110 and climbing, and you want to watch it really close at this point, because you don't want to boil it, because that will mess up the flavor as much as anything, but it will also start to boil off the alcohol in there. So we're almost up to 120, and this is a fairly quick process. The time-consuming element of it is just letting it sit for a day, and frankly, it's hard to let it sit there for a day when you know that you've got this delicious glug waiting to be done. I'll be back in a couple minutes to let you see how this changes. Okay, we're back, and I'm starting to be able to smell it. So that's the first sign that you can tell that you're getting close to it being the right temperature. But the thing you want to watch is those little bubbles. So we'll go in there right now and we'll see what the temperature is. We're probably up around 160, maybe slightly above. Yep, right at 160. So we want to get it up to just right at 170, and that'll come really quick here. So you don't have to stir this at all. It's not going to burn on the bottom. But really quick here, you're going to start seeing changes because it hits a temperature where it starts causing things to happen, and you can kind of see it starting to happen already. See how the bubbles are starting to change to like a froth? That's a sign that you're almost there. So when it becomes sort of frothy instead of bubbly, or instead of open, that's when you know you're at the right place. So we are just about there. You can see the little things in there dancing about. Okay, so I'm going to give it a stir here. You'll see, I hope you can tell in the video that there's just a little bit of steam starting to come off of this. And we are just about there. There's more fruit in this batch than there normally is, so it's kind of blocking the froth on the top. But you can see over here, there's starting to be movement in there. And see how the froth is just starting to form there? How quickly it showed up over here? That's what you're looking for, that froth. And I would guess that right now, wow, that's hot. We're at 170 right now. So if I had not stirred that, you would see froth all over the top. You'll see it tomorrow when I warm it up again, because that's what we'll do again tomorrow, is we'll warm it up to that 170. But you can see the little frothy bubbles there that are forming, telling us it's that time. And we'll go ahead and shut the heat off. And we're just going to let it sit here at room temperature until tomorrow. The whole house will smell of that clove and wine and cinnamon. And yeah, see, you can see the froth forming a little bit better now. That's the part that you're looking for. When it gets frothy like that, then you're close. And you don't want to boil it. You don't want to get it too much higher than about that 170 mark. A little bit isn't going to hurt. But there you have it. You've been putting up with Doc T. We're making Swedish Glogg, and tomorrow we will finish it. Okay, now, because that zooms in, am I still in there?
You are still in there. All of your pans and stuff are also in there.
My pants are?
Pans.
Oh, okay. Are my pants?
Vague or rough, like light.
Okay.
Do you want me to delete this part of the recording? Or?
Yeah, stop it.